We all know by now that our students are comfortable with technology and maybe a little bit too comfortable. Just like everything that we teach in our classrooms, we still need to set up those rules and routines when it comes to using technology in our classrooms. Here are the top 7 tech skills to focus on with your students, whether it is back to school, coming back from long breaks, or if your class needs a little bit of a refresh. Welcome to the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast, a show that'll help you with lesson ideas, systems, and actionable tips to apply to your classroom. I am your host, Naomi Meredith, a former classroom teacher turned current STEM teacher and coach. With over a decade of experience teaching and a master's degree in STEM leadership, I am here to coach you throughout the year to help you gain back more time to create innovative experiences for your students. Grab your earbuds and let's get started. I can't believe that we are already here on episode 10. And I am just so excited about what this podcast has already grown into and all of the positive feedback that you as listeners and people on social media have been sharing with me. I knew that this podcast was needed, but I didn't realize how needed it was. And I am just so thankful for all of you that you are listening to me each week and letting me help you with your STEM routines in your classroom. With that, I wanted to read to you one of the reviews that on Apple Podcasts. And I do read these, and these just light me up and help me keep going. So thank you so much to Bree Smith 13. And here's what this person had to say. Just what I needed. I am so excited about this podcast. I've seen Naomi speak at conferences and follow her on social media. She has wonderful ideas, tips, and resources for implementing STEM in a meaningful and purposeful way. Now, instead of having to spend all the time researching STEM ideas and lessons, I can just listen to her podcast on my way to work. Thank you so much for this review. It means the world to me. If you want to share a review, definitely go ahead and do that on your podcasting platform. I love to see what you guys think of the podcast. And these reviews help other teachers like you find this because I know there's not a whole lot of elementary STEM podcasts out there. So that way we can reach more teachers and I can help create content for exactly what you need. So let's dive into this episode. There is definitely a purpose when using technology for academic purposes and when using technology for fun and entertainment. Sometimes it's hard for our students to differentiate between the two, and it doesn't always mean that their native skills with technology always transfer into the classroom when it comes to those academic settings. Now, they probably can learn all of those academic skills a lot more quickly, but we just can't assume that kids know how to use technology when it comes to the school setting. These skills definitely need to be reviewed and explicitly taught throughout the year so that students are using technology in appropriate ways and for the purposes that they're intended for. This episode is going to be a little bit different from the others. It's going to be more of a list style. And if you read blogs, it's called a listicle. I'm not sure what it's called for a podcast listicle, maybe podsticle, popsicle, not quite sure. But in this episode, I'm going to be listing 7 skills that you can teach your students. And these would all be little mini lessons to teach your class throughout the day or one a day, depending on the time that you have with kids. Now, there is a freebie that I created for this. It is in my TPT shop, completely free. And inside this freebie, it's going to list videos that I made. You can see my beautiful face teach these little mini lessons to kids. So you could show these videos to kids or you can watch them and teach them on your own. And for each of those videos, there's a little badge that you can print or share digitally with students to help them keep track of the lessons that they have learned. So there will also be a little organizer, a little placeholder for those badges that kids can put those in, again, digitally or printed, that they can remember the lessons and make sure that they use technology appropriately in your classroom for success. The first tech skill that you want to teach with your kids is your basic technology rules in the classroom. Don't have more than 10 rules. That can be a lot for you and the students to remember. But these are your basic rules when using technology in the classroom, no matter what the tool is. So this can be things like we always carry devices with two hands. So that could be relating to laptops or robots. I also like to include the rule we are respectful of everybody's work. So this includes helping each other when you're working on the same device, but also when you are commenting on other students' work. And that's really important as well, that digital citizenship piece. So think about the classroom rules that you want to have in your classroom, and you're going to teach those with kids. Back in episode 7, I shared with you some back to school activities that you can use in your classroom. And one of those was a fun activity that you can use to help review and teach the rules in your classroom. So if you haven't checked it out, go back and have a listen. This will just make your rule review a lot more fun in relation to this tech skill. Also add in there, and this may or may not be a rule, but just a general routine in your classroom, is to show kids how to properly store and plug in the devices, whatever they are using. It's really important for kids to have this responsibility in your classroom. I really recommend giving students a number in your classroom that you can use for various activities and for their devices. So just number kids 1 through 24 plus. That would be so nice of a class of 24, right? But 1 through 24 plus, and that have the devices go in that slot that matches with their number. That can make things a lot easier, whether you have the kids for specials or in your regular classroom. So definitely teach that proper care of how to carry and also store and plug in those devices, whatever kind that you have. Also, make sure you're following any district or school guidelines. Our school computers have some little quirks to them when putting them away and the logging out process. So also make sure to teach those to your kids as well. The second tech skill that you want to share with students is taking care of their headphones and wrapping up those cords. Those cords, I don't know how many I have untangled over the years, but teaching the kids how to care for those headphones and cords is really important. A couple places that I like to store headphones in my STEM classroom is headphones that students are able to grab. I have those shoe organizers from Walmart or Amazon. They are the clear pockets, and once students wrap up those headphones, they can put them in the pockets. And it's great because it's long, but it can fit the needs of all heights of all students of all ages, which is really great. I also have some other headphones on the side that I just wrap up and put in gallon Ziploc bags. These are just extra headphones from storage spaces, or sometimes students will leave fancy headphones behind. So I will actually hold on to those first teachers, just in case there's a few students who might need headphones in their classroom for the school year. A little tip, I know this isn't headphones, but I do have a bunch of computer mice with tails. That's what I call them, at least. Bunch of computer mice with cords. And I have another hanging shoe rack with those mice as well. Now, you're probably wondering why in the world would I have computer mice when I'm not even in a computer lab? I love having computer mice on hand because some students actually prefer using a mouse. I personally prefer using a mouse as well, so I completely understand. But some students prefer it, and especially when we get into coding or 3D printing lessons, a computer mouse is actually a lot more efficient than a touchpad. So this is a great asset to have on hand. You could go out and purchase some or even reach out to local businesses if they have extra computer mice with the tails that they could donate to your classroom. So again, teach your students how to care for these things in your classroom and where to store them when they are finished. The third tech skill to teach to your students is, what are your school-wide norms when using technology in your building? This might be site specific, and you probably want to modify the lesson that I have linked in the freebie. But what are your school's expectations when using technology in your school building? Is there a specific checkout system for that? Are kids bringing the devices to and from school? Are the students using devices from their classroom and bringing them into STEM? A big thing that I like to tell my students is that we're not changing the backgrounds. That is just so tempting. But I know some teachers are okay with that. So as a school, now you might be even the technology lead in your building, just like I am. I'm our K-5 STEM teacher, but I'm also our school-wide tech person as well. So whether that's your role or the tech teacher's role, a separate person, that'd be so nice. A separate person, think about those school-wide technology norms that all teachers are following, and that you can relay that information to the students as well. The fourth tech skill you want to share with your students is what are the troubleshooting tips and tricks that they can use in general with most pieces of technology. This is extremely helpful to teach all students instead of just having one or two techsperts in your classroom. I actually don't like having that role in a class because I think all students can learn. Yes, there are kids who are comfortable with technology, but these are all basic things that all kids should know, and even teachers. So teach kids those basic things like refreshing a page, closing a page out or closing something out when it doesn't work, turning something on and off, plugging and unplugging. Just those basic troubleshooting things that can work with most pieces of technology are super helpful to teach kids and keep referring to throughout the year. Whenever there's a technology problem in the classroom, instead of me touching the issue, I always ask, well, what did you do? Talk me through that. So if they didn't try anything, well, then we can think of a problem to solve it. So my role is to teach them how to troubleshoot these things, not just to be the superhero. I really want to help kids troubleshoot those issues. So go through those things. You're going to have to go through them all the time, but trust me, it will be so worth it throughout the year where you have kids who are being problem solvers and not problem makers. The fifth technology skill that you want to share with students is cleaning devices. This is another important part about digital citizenship is making sure that we care for those devices and use them the right way, but also clean them periodically so that they are looking good and being the best that they can be. You could even make a cleaning video with students and have this go on your school-wide news that I've done in the past, or even email this out to teachers so that everyone is aware of the proper cleaning methods for your school devices. When I have students come to STEM, I really try my best to have kids help clean devices at the end of the week so they're ready to go for the next group of kids. And if they brought in their own devices from their classroom, that they will clean them with me as well. So again, this is a great skill to teach kids to keep your technology squeaky clean and looking good. The sixth tech skill to teach your kids is knowing their username and password. Now, depending on your school, there might be one username and password that is used for multiple platforms. Then you might have a bunch of usernames and passwords for other platforms. Now, it's okay if they don't know all of them. That can be a lot. Even as an adult, I have probably at least 100 usernames and passwords. But they do need to know how to get that information and how to type that in the proper way. As a STEM teacher, I actually don't hold on to all of the kids' usernames and passwords. And I know this sounds very counterintuitive. However, my role is to not be the gatekeeper of knowledge. And if I always have their usernames and passwords, they're always reliant on me for information and for other things. In episode 9, I talked about how I have students in grades 2nd through 5th grade bring their devices from their classroom and they use them so they can have the connection that the same device can do the same things that we do in STEM and also in their classroom. The big thing I tell kids and their teachers is that if they're bringing their device and they still need support with their username and password, they need to bring that information from their classroom. It's taken a lot of training in my school building to make sure that students have access to their usernames and passwords in an independent way, rather, again, being reliant on the teacher to pull those out for the kids. So this has really helped with students being independent and responsible for their username and password, and also knowing where to gather that information as well. Some classes have them taped inside of their pencil boxes, some have them in their homework folders, some in their planners. So wherever that information is in their classroom, the classes will bring that in if needed. And I'm not the gatekeeper of all the knowledge. That's a whole lot of information that I just can't keep track of. So do what works best for you, but really teaching kids their username and passwords and how to get that information and logging in will be a great success. Along those same lines, the final tech skill to teach your students is how to log in. Now, you could make a separate badge for specific platforms that you like to use with kids. For example, I use Seesaw with all of my classes, so I might want to show them the couple ways that we can log into Seesaw. You might use Google Classroom or Schoology or Epic Books, so maybe make a separate badge for those, and you can keep adding in badges throughout the year. This is important as well, just working on those systems and routines, using those same tools over and over again will help build that independence and responsibility of students. I don't always expect kids to be the experts at logging in to very unique platforms, maybe when we're using Lego education tools or 3D printing. That will come with time, but the platforms that we will use over and over again, I really want to be explicit teaching those to kids so that they know that's a resource that they can get to and be successful for our projects. So real quick, let's review the 7 tech skills that you want to teach your kids and be explicit about that we talked about in today's episode. Number 1, going over those general technology rules. Number 2, caring for your headphones. Number 3, understanding school-wide technology norms. Number 4, being a problem solver and troubleshooting with technology. Number 5, learning how to clean devices. Number 6, knowing your username and password and how to gather that information. And number 7, logging into various platforms that will be used consistently throughout the year. You can definitely add in more skills, but these are the skills that I have taught with my K-5 STEM students throughout the years and also when I have co-taught in their classrooms as well. And these are things that definitely you can refer back to and just have that consistent language with kids so that they can be successful when using that academic technology in your classroom. Also, don't forget to get the freebie for this episode. It can be found in my TPT shop using this link, naomimeredith.com/TPT Tech Skills. In this freebie, you can get all the badges that relate to the skills that we talked about in today's episode and video sample lessons of me teaching that you can share with your students or watch on the side and teach the lesson yourself, along with a system where students can collect those badges either digitally or in the printed form. Thank you so much again for listening to today's episode. I can't wait to chat with you in the next one. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast. I would love to connect with you over on Instagram at @NaomiMeredith_ or send me an email to elementarystemcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Also, make sure to check out my website, naomimeredith.com, to see all the show notes from today's episode and shop my K-5 STEM resources. Any questions you have, needs for resources, or ideas for episodes, get in touch. I'll talk to you soon.